First video, what we had done is open up a new document, uh, worked a little bit with the properties palette and the layer palette and the type tool here. And remember, I use Command T to pull up my character palette there, although when I've got something that I'm working with type, that information will also show up in my properties here as well. So let's manipulate this text a little bit. Right now, because it's a actual font and still text, we can still make changes to it. Like we can change the spelling, or we can go ahead and change, let's select it and change the font to something else, right? So all those things can still happen because it's still text. We need to change the scale, we can do that in the type box, or we can also grab these handles. If just a little hint, if you hold down the Option key and the Shift key on a Mac and pull, then it will scale it from the center and scale it proportionally. Okay, so we've got Monte Carlo there, and I like these little kind of pieces that are inside these letter forms. I want to maybe use those. Let me show you how you can get those. I've got the text selected with my General Select tool here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Type, Create Outlines. Okay. What that will do, it doesn't look all that different, but it is significantly different. This is now no longer type in the sense of as it's a font. It's now just type-shaped figures or shapes, if you will. So, like any other shape, whether it was a square, circle, triangle, whatever, I can manipulate that. Let's go ahead and select this, and then Command plus will take us in closer. I can go in, and with my direct select tool, I can go and grab points and manipulate them if I wanted to, right? Because it is not an M anymore, it's an M shape. I can also take my group selection tool, and I need that because this is a grouped shape. If I hold down, if I use my general select tool and select it, you'll see that all of these get selected. That means they're all part of a group. So I'm going to go here and use my group selection tool and maybe I'll take this little diamond shape here, and I'm going to go and copy it, which is conveniently Command C, and I'm going to then paste it, which is conveniently Command V. Well, I guess that's not so convenient. And another one to note is Command X for cut there. But let's copy it, Command C, and then Command V, paste it. When you paste something, it pastes into the middle of your viewing area. So if you just do a flat out paste like that. So maybe we'll use that. And I'm going to go in there and let's go in and zoom in a little bit more. I kind of like this area here. I'm going to take that area. Oops, I got too much. Let's go there. Hold down the Shift key to select multiple items. And I'm going to just take that out like that. The way I did that, I was holding down the Option key, which allows me to clone something. If I click and drag while I'm holding down the Option key, it will clone that. This thing, you'll notice if I select this, it is still part of that selection. This isn't. This thing is not. But this is still part of the selection because this is actually still part of what's called a compound path. These areas on the interior space are part of a compound path. Think of the compound path like a donut, like this O in a sense. What we've got is this hole in the middle. That's what a compound path is versus a simple path, which has nothing else, just the outside form of the path. Because this thing is still part of that, because I just cloned it. I didn't separate it. What I would want to do there is let's select it. Um, tell you what, I'm going to take this overall and ungroup it. And I'll take this, which is still connected to this M, and I'm going to go and release that compound path. Yeah, see, now this thing filled in and so did that. Let me take them, I'll take them individually now, and I'll make them into compound paths. And that will give them their spaces back. But now this thing is free and no longer part of that. Okay, so I'm going to command 0, which goes back to fit in window basically. So the entire artboard fits in window. I'm going to close this for a time being too. And let's set these aside. Sometimes things are hard to grab when you're trying to grab them and they're small like that. I want to make an ornament out of this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this whole thing. Did I group it again? Nope, it's still that way. Let's go ahead back and group it, which, by the way, is Command G. So now when I select it, I don't have to keep selecting each individual part of it. I can just click on it and I'll have the entire thing. I want to make an ornament by rotating this in several times around this center point. I'll show you how to do that. We'll go over here and get our rotation tool. If that's not showing up, remember if you see these little darkened corners, that means there's more information there. So if you click on it, you'll see that the scale tool says the reflect tool, the shear tool. And if you go to this little side edge, it will actually release it from the toolbar. Doesn't remove it, it just gives you the entire tool set that's in that area for you to look at one time. But we'll get our rotate tool, and one of the things that you might note, and we'll zoom in, is this little blue crosshair here. That's the area that this Monte Carlo will rotate around. By default, things rotate by their centers. But I don't want to rotate it by its center. I want to rotate it by this point right here. So to do that, I first select it. Then I go down to where the guides intersect. And I'm going to hold down the Option key. And you'll see those dots that come next to the crosshairs there. That indicates that I'm relocating the area that this thing will rotate around. So now I'm going to click here and kind of move that crosshair so that I've got it right where I want it. Then when I let go, I get this dialog box that asks me what angle I want to rotate this at. Well, we know that there's 360 degrees in an angle, so I don't have to figure out the exact angle. I can just say I want it to go 360 degrees and I want it to rotate, say, 5 times. So that will divide it, 360 divided by 5, and we can preview and see what that kind of thing looks like. And here's the key. Rather than hitting OK, I'm going to hit copy. That way I get a copy of that happening. And here's another thing to remember. I want to continue to have this thing rotate around the circle, but rather than doing that same thing again, I can go into what's called transform again or Command D. I like to think of it as Command duplicate. So it will duplicate my last action. So I've done that. I'm going to do Command D, Command D, Command D, and now I've got this thing having rotated 5 times around. And look, it's created kind of this interesting star shape there, and that's something I might be able to work with in my ornament, right? So let's do something with these other pieces. I'm going to take this piece here. Hang on, I may have to zoom in on it. Let's see. No, I'm going to take it and move it here. Well, let's put it right in the center, right? And let's make it bigger. Okay, here we go, Option and Shift. We can make it bigger. Oops, I did a little bit of distortion there. Option Shift. And let's make sure it's right on that 5.5 axis. Oh, not 0.55, that wouldn't work. Okay, now, not sure why it moved there. Huh, ah, this is actually set at 5 inches. Doesn't matter. We'll work with it the way it is right now. So let's take and rotate this thing a couple times. It's already rotating from its center, so I'll just double click on this. And let's say we'll do this one by 8. So 360 divided by 8. And now Command D, what'd I forget? I forgot to hit the copy, right? Command D. So after a while, it's just rotating on top of itself. But now we've got this interesting shape in the center. Let's go ahead and group those and maybe make that whole group a little bit bigger. Let's put this spot in here. Maybe make it bigger as well. And let's rotate it 5 times around. So 360 divided by 5, copy, Command D, Command D, Command D. Now we're starting to build this ornament here. What I might do with these things, let's go ahead and group them here so that then I can grab them and perhaps change their color. Same thing with this. I might go ahead and select, holding down the Shift key, all these iterations of Monte Carlo and group them so that I can change their color. Right. This thing in the middle, it's already grouped. But I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. Instead of doing that, I'm going to ungroup it. And I'm going to go under Window and pull up my Pathfinder, which you might also note shows up here in your Properties palette. And I'm going to unite those shapes. Watch what's happened. Now there are a bunch of individual shapes. I'm going to unite them. Now it's become one shape. This is where we can see this is in a preview mode. I'm going to go and look at this in a outline mode, which is Command Y. You can toggle back and forth and you'll see that there's now one shape. Let me hide my guides for a second. Right? So Command Y again will get us back to preview. Okay. So we've got one ornament that we've started. I'm going to create a couple more and then I'll show you how to make a pattern out of it.